Sandeep, if you are to give us 2 points as to what needs to be looked at immediately, what would that be?
So instead of 2, I'll make it 5.
Yes, please.
So I'll call it 5 C's.
Yes.
That's the way I describe what is required to make the large part of the population into EV charging, EVs, and hence EV charging. So number one, very clearly, is the convenient locations. So we have to have chargers at convenient locations. You cannot have chargers in the bylanes and dinghies where, you know, the chargers are not visible. So they have to be on the highways. You have to be located well. You have to have facilities which are there at the charging points at which the customer can spend some time, right? Convenient location. Second is the choice. Second C is the choice. Today there are, last year there were 3 cars. Today there are 20 cars, or let's say 18 odd. One of them is just outside. There are so many scooters. So the choice has to increase. Compare it to 15, 16 cars in electric. Compare it to about 400 models of all brands put together from 6 lakh rupees to 1 crore rupees. There is a huge amount of choice. You introduce some choice, the transformation happens. The third one is the cost. You have to have a vehicle at every price point. Scooters today are 80,000, 1 lakh rupees, whereas petrol scooters start at much lower. Similarly, cars. 70% of the cars sold in India are below 8 lakh rupees. Today, you don't have an electric car below 8 lakh rupees at all. So you get some vehicles, and this is for the ecosystem. The other one is collaboration. I think Mr. Srivastava very beautifully summarized, and to respond to what you asked, that is this person important or that person important. I think there are people in this ecosystem which have to collaborate. No one person can make it happen. Government can definitely not make it happen if the private individuals or the industry does not support it. And I just take a small detour from my 5 C's. See, today there are 3 big stakeholders. 3 big stakeholders. Government, your automakers, auto manufacturers, and third is the customers. Now you start with the customer. The very fact that, towards the fag end of the pandemic, hopefully, you have a full house and people are interested in EVs means that there is a massive narrative. This is a living room conversation. Almost everyone that I ask tells me that I have already purchased my last petrol car and my next car is going to be an electric car. Everybody. And I mean, I can ask, you ask for a show of hands, you will get the answer, same thing. Automakers, you are saying 20, 30, you have to have at least 30%, 40%. Now here is the answer. Most global manufacturers will stop manufacturing cars of petrol diesel variety after 2025. Volkswagen has announced, GM has announced, Toyota has announced, BMW has announced, Ford has announced, Jaguar has announced, whether 25 or 26 in 2025. They will stop manufacturing cars. So what do? You will not get a buyer for your second-hand car. And the third one, government, I think people like Srivastava sir in the NITI Aayog and the government is doing a phenomenal job. They are enabling this ecosystem like nobody's business. It is for the industry and for the customers to pick up the gauntlet and run. I mean, government has done enough and more, really. And I think this is something that comes from the heart. So I'll come back now to the 5th C, which is customer convenience or customer experience. People like us have a responsibility to ensure that the customer experience of the charging ecosystem is top of the line. Which means there is a digital platform. You go to a charger, it has to function every time with various payment methods. And you have to have a record of all the transactions. If there is a poor reliability, the entire ecosystem is collapsing. So the key 5 things, I just say again, convenient location, choice, cost, customer experience, collaboration. That's it, to my mind, summarizes the entire discussion around EVs and EV ecosystem.
Specifically the charging. Right. Praveen?
Rightly said, the 5 Cs. These 5 Cs are very much important to the. I
So you have to
remember-
also give me your own 2 or 3 C's out of it. Yeah.
Yeah. I remember a customer of Nexon EV, and he said to me once that I can go to a long place with the EV, but the main challenge I'm facing is that I know that there is a charger, but I don't know that it will function or not. So that's where we have to focus, that the charger which we are installing should have functioning of 24/7, because that's all automated. That's not manpower driven industry at this point of time. That's all automated. That's all driven by the software. So what we have to focus on is the reliability of the chargers to the customers. If you are planning to go on a trip to like Jaipur, you have to have the chargers in between. That should be functional. It's not like that you have put in the chargers but that are not functional and that are not operational. You go to a charger for a top up and you can't do the top up, then there's nothing we can do about it. So what we have to do is we have to focus on the customer experience, because once one customer experience is better, then another customer will shift to an EV by the first customer. So it is a chain driven industry. So it shifts from person to person, because when you are sitting in a conference, if I say that EV is better, then someone will say that EV is not good. So as such, when everybody agrees that EV is better, and from my experience I drove everyone that it is better than the normal IC engines, then we will shift to EVs, then we will shift to the EV in a much better place. That's what.
Thank you.
So looking at all the segments, I would say 3 things that will work everywhere is that right business model, putting that first. Secondly, information to the customer, whether that charger is working or not. That information flow has to be very, very transparent and very, very smooth. Third one, as rightly most of the panel members pointed out, it is a customer experience. You cannot mess up with the customer experience very clearly. Even if you are best in the class, best brand, if your chargers are not working, people are going to thrash you like anything. So these are the 3 things from my side. Thank you.
Yes, Sapna, and this is addressed to Mr. Srivastava actually. Right. Sir, I think important is to establish the standards and specifications for the chargers right from the beginning. I think we as a country did a lot of mistakes when we brought in solar, and we repeated the same mistake when we brought in LED into the country. As a result of which there was very low quality products which sold for many years. And many of those are today kind of wasted assets. Let's not do the same thing in the chargers. So my request to the government would be to set up very stringent technical specifications which are suited to the Indian conditions. So Indian weather conditions, Indian operating conditions, which is dust and humidity and smoke. So let's have those conditions set up right from the beginning so that good quality chargers get installed across the country and we don't face that issue subsequently. That's number one. Number two, my request would be that, and I'm again repeating this, that while as a country we generate surplus power, we have more power, but in reality we have a power deficiency. Even in our largest cities, today there are power cuts during the summer months. That's a reality on ground. And this condition will only become worse as the per capita consumption, which I mentioned earlier, will increase. So one thing which the government can do is that it's done a great initiative on this subsidization of land acquisition of 1 rupee. If you could extend this to power generation also, which means now with the new guidelines, you're saying that every 25 kilometers there should be a charging facility on the highways, which is great. So along with the charging facility, if you could also enable a piece of land where you could generate power, solar essentially, I think then it becomes a complete package where none of the transmission companies, distribution companies have to worry about erecting towers and bringing power there. And it's kind of a self-sustaining charging station. So these are the 2 requests I would have to the government.
Right. 25 kilometers and that too on both the sides of the highways. Yes, yes.
Just would like to another point, this revenue sharing notification 1 rupees where government CPO can get it from the government entities. Probably government should also think about shifting from revenue sharing kind of model to profit sharing. Because revenue sharing, the term itself is you are sharing the part of revenue. Whereas in long term, competition is going to increase and your revenue will also start decreasing. Their profit sharing model kind of makes much more sense after 5 years, because we are talking about 10 years, 15 years kind of time frame for a EV charging infrastructure. These chargers will work for that kind of time frame, right? So why not go for the profit sharing and on a percentage basis? That model will be a much more win-win kind of model. But yes, it's a great step, great start to even propose a revenue sharing, because earlier on we were talking about fixed rentals. This is the point I wanted to add. Thank you.
I guess adding to Sandeep's 5 Cs, one was already there, but I'll again add that: consumer, cost, and China. I guess this would also. What's the role of China?
China has no role to play. They are just supplying components, and they will continue to do like any other country. There's a lot of work happening within India on battery chemistries, as was discussed in the previous panel as well. Uh, the dependence on China for components is currently slightly high, and with the schemes of the government for battery, for manufacturing, and all of that, the dependence is slowly reducing. So I think there is a lot of hype about what China, and they have always been 5 to 6 years ahead of the curve in some of these new technology adoptions. You talk about telecom, you talk about e-mobility, you talk about robotics. They have been ahead, and that's something which is acknowledged. But in this case, I think the kind of steps that the government is taking, we have an opportunity to leapfrog. China as a market, as Srivastava very correctly mentioned, they have stopped subsidizing their vehicles as well as charging stations. So they have gone ahead, but that's a very classic 6-7 year lag, or now it is even reduced, that we are behind, but absolutely no problem. We actually have the advantage of leapfrogging the technologies and indigenization under the Atmanirbhar scheme to really make it ahead and much ahead. So I don't see China as a factor. In my 5 Cs, I stay 5 Cs, no sixth one.
Right. Okay. Last closing comments, sir. Srivastava.
It is also pretty heartening to see that the state also now moving very fast. Yes, you are right when you say that it is the kind of work to be smartphones and LEDs, but then yes, the key of the effort is that it is not the person you should move forward with the technology. Now the Indian industry has to have the confidence to move forward. India is a big market who must build up on the Indian market, and then globally as we very so that is something which is very much needed. And yes, of course, federalizations are needed. We have been huge focus on it in 2017, 2018, but unfortunately, it is coming for and both of the industry, which is what there is that federalization has not yet been applied as booking standards and fast booking standards are concerned. And unfortunately, the main GDP that all the government and that they have our own initiative and our own effort like that. Probably in a hurry to adopt the electric vehicles in India. But then again, we should get out of it and go for it. As far as the power, yes, of course, we claim to be our country, but it is also a fact that the quality power is not available in the and I'm going very well in that. It is very but still we claim that we have a proper to go and our requirement and that something is the government should not look into but yes, as I said earlier also, it has to be considered to all the only the where to be and how much is the energy manufacturing and like so we have to see which one and I did say that 90% of our generation would be by using the part of the so that is what the are. So in that we can actually my understanding that is what really is in the sense that family and breed transition will take place. I mean, all these things that is learning is becoming super. That is to be educated from hospital part to and the relation with the rest of the very companies and the rest of the think tanks, when the doctors really to be. So these things are more broader issues, like not I was reading what they do, or the starting structure and the department of starting but you cannot succeed without having a vision for it. Because it is the event, how many audience, it has to have a strong vision for it, to succeed, and without that, you cannot be able to succeed. But I look forward to your very fine and very sweet adoption of
Thank you so much. We have unfortunately exceeded the time allotted, so I would like to say thank you to all of you for being a part of this panel. Thank you so much.